Hi and welcome to Music and Gear. I have a Leo Jaymz to my left. I was on Amazon about 2 weeks ago and I saw they came out with some new models. The pictures make the guitar look very nice. If it's anything like the pictures, it's definitely a change in direction for the company. We have reviewed this company once before and it wasn't a very positive review. So I figured I'd give the company one more opportunity to redeem themselves. So let's open up this box and see which model I picked up. And the styrofoam is very squiggly. It's not rigid. It's difficult to get out of the box. And it's just a foam top, and it's a gig bag. Okay, I got the gig bag out of the styrofoam coffin. It was well packed. They had this completely encapsulated in foam and then in cardboard. The gig bag does have a very large pocket right here. And on the back, it's got the little straps to make it like a backpack. Now let's check the inside of the bag and see how they've packaged the guitar. And the zipper works smooth. So on the inside, we have our guitar. There is no rest for the neck on this particular one. And it's got a little bit of padding. It's not highly padded, but there is a little bit of padding there. And here's the guitar. And of course they've got a rubber band on the top. I'll take that off. And again, this is my favorite part, peeling off the protective coating and seeing what we have. And I'm already liking the neck. And it looks like they put a little styrofoam piece on the selector, and they put paper over the strings. Let's take a knife here. Pretty nice. And there's the guitar. It does have a binding. And this is the flame maple top version. Now there is a story behind this. I actually ordered the burl top one, but they sent me this one. So since they sent me this one, we're going to go ahead and review it. The neck feels nice. Now the neck does have a scarf joint. I don't know if you can see that or not, but there is a scarf joint on the neck. It's very pretty. It's actually very sharp. Really quick. I mean, I like they put the holes there on the plate for quick adjustments on the bridge. I like that. And of course this guitar is active. There's the battery. It's pretty sharp. Well, like we do every guitar on this channel, we're going to go over everything. We're going to look at the neck radius. We're going to look at the string action height. We're going to check the frets to see how well they set the frets and leveled the frets. We're going to check all the ball ends. We're going to look at the tuning keys. We're going to check the relief on the neck. We're going to check the electronics cavity and look at how well they did the soldering. And of course, we're going to look at the general fit and finish. We're going to weigh the guitar, and we're going to get some measurements on the neck and mic out the neck. After we do all that, then we're going to play it and see what it sounds like. Okay, I have the guitar up on our stool here. We're going to look at the general fit and finish of the guitar and the condition that it was sent to me. I guess we'll kind of start looking at the body of the guitar. It is a very pretty flame maple top. And I'm looking at the seam here, and I'm looking at the bridge, and the seam does align to the center of the bridge. And looking down it, it looks like the seam does follow the neck. So this is what they call a book match top, where they slice it and then fold it over and it creates a book match top. Looking at the seam, I don't see any discolorization in the seam. So it's a pretty good book match. There is just ever so slight a mark right there in the book match, but it's not horrible. It's a pretty good match. They did go to a darker blue around the edge to give it like a burst. So it goes from like a blue to a blue-green. It's very pretty. And they have put a binding on the guitar. And just running my fingers around it here, I'm checking for high and low spots on the binding and finish. I don't feel anything. So the binding is flush with the guitar. Now let's check the finish to the binding and see how crisp it is. There are two little spots right here of blue bleed over in the binding. It's very minimum. And a little bit of error right here. Again, extremely minimum. All in all, it's done very well. I've seen $4,000 Gibsons with much work, much worse binding cleanup than this guitar. Really just a little bit right here. This spot right here is pretty much non-noticeable, but there is some bleed over right here, and it is minimal. The top of the guitar is a high gloss finish, and it is very smooth. And looking at it through the light, I'm not seeing any high and low spots. I'm not seeing any checking. It is well polished. On the sides of the guitar, again, a very high gloss, well polished. On the back of the guitar, we have 4 inset screws holding the neck in place. And there is a little bit of a chamfer cutting across the body right here. The tremolo cavity cover is setting on top of the body. It is not recessed into the body. It is sitting on top of the body. The access for the 9-volt battery, again, is sitting on top of the body. But our electronics cover is sitting flush with the body. And checking on how flush it sits. Everywhere but right here is setting about a 1/2 millimeter below. And here, from here to here, it's setting about a 1/2 millimeter above the body. It doesn't feel like it's bouncing, but it's not perfectly flush right there. On the back of the guitar, they do have a little bit of a round over. The top of the guitar, the edge is just broken. It may be a 1/16 of an inch round over on the top. On the back of the guitar, though, it looks like they've almost done a 1/4 inch round over. And it goes all the way around. Now here it does get a little tighter due to the chamfer. So it goes to about a 3/16 to a 1/8 inch round over. And we have a bella carve right here. And again, the radius through the belly carve does get a little tighter. But it all feels very smooth. It's nicely done. Let's look at our neck pocket and see if we see any gaps in the finishing from where they set the neck in, or if the neck pocket was routed large. On this side of the neck pocket, this comes up completely square. They have not rounded this back. There is a little bit of the body sticking out here where it makes the transition underneath the neck, and it only traverses maybe a 1/4 of an inch, and then it goes under the neck. But this joint is square, and the neck to the body joint across here is very tight. And that's the same with this upper line. On the back, how the neck fits in here, it looks like it's fitting tight. And I'm not seeing a gap in this location. So again, if there is a neck shim in here, it's going to be very minimal, because I'm not seeing the neck kicked out from the body. There is a large flat spot here where they come through the neck and they ramped out to the flat spot. So they did not run this contour all the way to the body. So this is the seat cut of the neck that fits into the body. And you can see there's a good 5/16 of an inch between where this chamfer from the neck goes to the flat spot to where the body is. Our pickups in the guitar are setting very nice. They're very square, very true. And the pickup rings have a brushed black, like almost like an iodine or aluminum brushed finish that's been done in black. I'm not sure if the camera will pick that up or not, but it's actually a brushed aluminum look. I can't tell if it's plastic. The edge feels sharp, so I'm going to say that that's actually a piece of aluminum, the pickup trim ring. If that's the case, that's very nice hardware. We do have a Wilkinson 2-post bridge, and we do have some of the screws sticking up past the saddles. And I do see something peculiar here. Some of these are just barely sticking up, and then other ones are sticking way up. Try to get that in the camera. So rubbing my hand across it, it's I hate to say it, but it's cheese grater sharp. You can see it scratching my hand. So this would definitely be something that would need to be done. You would need to order new screws and replace these and get the ones to where that screw is going to sit down below the saddle, because they are definitely sharp. The saddles themselves are very smooth. They're chamfered and rounded over in each position, so they feel really nice. It's just the screws sticking up. The finish on the bridge looks pretty decent. There is a small scratch here and a small ding in the bridge there. So the iodized coating has been nicked here and there. Let's look at our switch. The switch feels okay. There's quite a bit of slop in every direction in the center position. The lower position is not too bad. There's a little bit of side-to-side play. In the upper position, there's more side-to-side play. It feels like it's got a decent engagement. It's okay. Let's check the feel of our knobs. The volume knob is smooth. It's not glass smooth, but it is smooth. If you're a pinky player, this volume knob will cooperate with you. It doesn't have a lot of drag. Let's check our tone. Checking the tone to the volume, the tone feels like it has a little bit more drag to it, but it is smooth. And instead of a knarling on the knobs, it has a straight machine cut. I don't know if you can see that. I kind of like that knob. It's pretty nice. It's a nice knob. Now let's check our neck. The neck feels very nice. The neck reminds me of, especially with the scarf joint and the way the back of the neck feels, it feels like a mid-tier Ibanez. Maybe just a little bit thicker than a mid-tier Ibanez neck. It is a satin finish, and it is very smooth. It has been well sanded. The rosewood fingerboard to the neck, it's a good transition. It's nicely done. Going into our back of our headstock, there is no volute, so the neck just blends right into the back of the neck. And it feels very smooth. There was definitely some attention done to the neck after finishing. The logo on the top of the guitar you cannot feel. So it was applied, and then they've clear coated over it. It is completely smooth. It's very nicely done. And the blue section of the neck, I can see where they've rounded it over from the clear coat to go into the satin part of the neck. And it looks like there's quite a bit of finish on it. So it's a high build finish. Let's look at our nut. And the nut is flush with the neck. It is not eased. It is completely up and down, straight up and down, 90 degree to the neck. There's nothing wrong with that. It is cut flush and sanded flush to the neck, but it definitely has a sharp corner here and here. They've only broken the edge. And that's just a preference thing, that's all that is. Going down the neck, feeling our frets. Again, these are ball end frets, and there's absolutely no sharp frets. The fret ends are done very well. Looking at our frets, I'm looking for tooling marks. I'm seeing just a little bit of ghosting from the tooling marks, and it is ever so slight. They are done very well. And what I mean by ghosting, I don't see scratches. I see that they've taken the scratch out and they've stopped. It was polished. One more polishing on these, one more pass, and these frets would be perfect. They're well above average the way they are now. I'm just letting you know that I do see some ghosting from the fretwork. The fret feel, and as I would expect with this level of finish work, they're extremely smooth. Very smooth. It's not in tune, but it's very smooth. And there looks like there's a little bit of space between the E string and the edge. So you shouldn't have any issues rolling the string off the fretboard. Now let's look down the frets and see how well the frets were set. And this is typical. I don't know if you can see that or not, but this guitar, the frets are doing this all the way down the neck, both sides. And that's what I've come to expect with the ball end frets. It is extremely difficult to cut that fret perfect, do the machine work for the ball end fret, and then turn around and set that fret in the neck perfectly. And to get all these ball ends to align all the way down the neck. This guitar does not do that. The last guitar we reviewed on the channel, which was a Firefly, the fretwork and the ball end frets aligned. It was immaculate. This is typical from what I've seen during our 25 plus reviews of guitars, the import guitars. This is a pretty typical fret layout when it comes to the ball end frets. They they snake down the neck. We do have standard tuners, and all the hardware is done in a matte black finish. Our back cover here, you can see they've added 2 slots so you can get in to adjust the claw. That's a nice touch. And it does have a quick open door to get into your battery. And of course they did not give us a battery, so we'll have to buy a battery. Our strap buttons are the bugle type, and they are setting flat and square. And this one is setting on the center line of where the book match comes across. And this one is tight as well. And it looks like it's a little bit high on the horn as far as its placement, which is fine. It's still setting square to the radius. And we have a standard truss rod cover. The inlay on the neck is kind of unique, these large blocks. Here they've doubled it. And then here we have another for our 24th. Now looking down the neck, if you look at the inlays, you'll notice they're not all quite even. Now, I know I'm being super picky. It's a $230 guitar. But you can visually see the variation in the inlays, especially the double one here. But all in all, the fit and finish on the guitar is pretty good. Everyone knows I'm just extremely picky, and I'm pointing out every little thing that I see. I want you to know how the fit and finish on this guitar is. It doesn't matter if it's a $1,000 guitar or a $150 guitar. I'm going to point out the issues that I see. Anyway, let's go to the next step, and I think that's a pretty good fit and finish for this guitar. It is definitely very pretty. If it plays and sounds as good as it looks, this should be a killer guitar. Okay, I now have the guitar up on our stool here, and I have my gauge. And I guess I'm going to try 25.5 for my first. And that's what it is. So let's set it up here. And right now, the guitar has a little bit, it's rocking on the neck. So that means this guitar actually is bowed back. It has negative relief, the way it is set to me. Let me get an idea how much negative it has. So when the gauge is touching here and in the center, I have about 0.5 millimeters off the neck down at the 22nd fret. So it is going to need a neck adjustment. I have my fret rocker, And everyone, this is their favorite part. I'm going to go into squirrel mode and we're going to check all the frets and we're going to see how well the frets were leveled. And I know, I already said it has a little back bow, but the fret rocker is only checking 3 frets at a time. The neck has to be really out of whack before the fret rocker is going to detect that if you've got relief or positive relief or negative relief. So I'm going to start up at the top. And right off the bat. And that's quite a bit of rock. And again right there. So this fret from the low E to the center. And again on the next fret. It is rocking again. And again. And it's good there. And again right 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 there. And again. And again. And again. And it's good. And right there. And right there. And right there. And right there. So pretty much that whole fret. And a little bit right there. And right there. More rock. And right there. And right there. So pretty much that whole fret. And right there. And right there. And a little bit there. And a little bit there. And right there. And right there. And there. And there. So pretty much that whole fret. And right there. And right there. And there. And there. So pretty much that whole fret. And believe it or not, again right there. I'm going to say that this is the worst freaking guitar we've had on the channel as far as fret level. That is awful. Now let's check the action height the way it came from the factory. We're going to check our low E. And our low E string is set to 0.070. And our high E is set to 0.060. Now I'm going to be fair. We've just checked it the way it came from the factory. I'm going to pull off the truss rod cover. I'm going to take my gauge and I'm going to straighten this neck. Then we're going to go back and fret rocker it again, and you'll see that it's really not going to make that much difference. I'll be right back. Okay, I have loosened the first 3 strings. I've taken the truss rod cover off the top of the guitar and I've installed our key. Here's my gauge. And since I took the pressure off the first 3 strings, you can see that now without that string pressure, there's a lot of back bow in this neck. So let's loosen the rod, and that's going to probably take a couple turns. The truss rod does feel smooth. That was number 3. And I felt the pressure go off the neck on that turn. There's absolutely no pressure on that nut now. And that is setting on the neck all the way across. Let's set it up just to make sure. I do see a little bit of a light right here. It's touching here, 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 and here. And I did see just a fraction of light there. It could be a sanding error. Ever so slight after the 3rd fret. We're going to call that straight. Just a little bit of light. Now that we have the neck straight, I have my fret rocker. And once again, I'm going to attempt to go into squirrel mode and check these frets for the 2nd time now that the neck is straight. And right there. You can hear the fret rocker rocking on the frets. And again right there. And again right there. And again right there. And it's good there. Good. Good. And a little bit right there. And a little bit right there. And 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 there. And there. And there. And there. And there. And there. The reason this is so concerning, if this fret is high, okay, and the fret rocker is rocking between this fret and this fret, because this one's high. What's concerning is if you go 1 fret over and it does it again, that's horrible, because you're already resting on a high fret. So that means there's some really strange things going on right here, it's bad there, and if you move up one fret, it's also bad there. So that's telling you that there's a serious issue here as far as the fret leveling. See? You can hear it. So this fret is high. That's how come it's riding. It's able to rock back and forth between this fret and this fret. So this is your high fret. If we move one fret down, it does it again. I've only seen that a couple times. And it's bad there. Bad there, and there, and there, and there, and there. Now see how now it's riding tight, it's not rocking? Because this fret here was our high fret. So this fret shouldn't rock. It shouldn't rock on the next fret. You're already on a high fret. You just found it here. So it shouldn't rock here. Hear it? So if you move down one fret, now the end of the fret rocker is already on its high fret. It shouldn't rock. And there. And there, and a little bit there, and a little bit there, and there, and a lot right 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 there. Now we're coming off our high fret. And again, it's rocking with the left side of the fret locker on a high fret. And there. So you can see adjusting that neck and taking out that 0.5 millimeters of relief, whether it's back bow, negative or positive relief, really isn't going to change how well the frets were done. I'm looking at these frets and they do look good. Now here's my thought on this. There's a possibility they never leveled and crowned these frets. These frets could have went through the machine to put the bend on them. They did the ball end machining, polished the ends and installed them. Pressed them in the neck, and that's it. There's no way that you can level frets and crown them and it be that far out. That's just my thoughts on it. I'm thinking they took their fret wire, they crowned their fret wire, they did their machine work on the end of the frets, they installed them, made sure they pressed them in, because I have looked. All the frets are setting down tight in the guitar. They're in the neck. And I think that's it. That's really the only thing that I can think of that they could have possibly done here. And that may be why we're not seeing any tooling marks on the top of the frets, because it was never tooled. So now let's check the radius of our neck. We're going to take our gauge. I have a 12-inch radius gauge. And we're going to check the neck. Let's put our 12 on here. Let's try right at the base. Looks pretty good. Let's check up top. That looks really good at the top. But I'm seeing a little bit of a gap down here at the base, and that's confusing me. Let's come down part of the way and check it. Looks good there. I am going to say that the inlays is what caused the problem. I think they had to do a little extra sanding here on the ends right here to get those inlays flush. So I do see a little bit of a gap right there. This end's better. And again, right here. We're going to call it a 12-inch radius, but there is a little bit more chamfer done right through here. And I'm going to say that that's probably due to these large block inlays. They've had to sand a little bit more. This side seems pretty decent. Okay, I have my calipers, and I did loosen the first two strings so I can get my calipers in, get you some measurements. And up at the top, right at our first fret, at our first fret we have 21 millimeters. At our 12th, we have 24 millimeters. And the neck right here starts to get thicker at about the 14th fret. So that's where the neck starts to flare down for the neck joint. All right, let's get some widths up at our nut. We have 43 millimeters. At our 12th, we have 52.5 millimeters. And then at the 24th, we have 57 millimeters. Okay, I've retuned the instrument. And since I retuned it, I went ahead and put our tool back in our truss rod, and I've adjusted the neck to the string tension. The drawback is there's still no pressure on the truss rod. As soon as you take all the pressure off, I end up with about 0.3 millimeters of relief still in the neck. So what I did is, as soon as I felt pressure, I backed off just a little bit. I can take all the pressure off the truss rod and it doesn't get any better. The drawback to that is the neck's going to continue to move. The neck had so much rear back bow in it that it's going to take time for the string pressure to pull on that neck to where that truss rod starts to actually do its job. So I loosened it and brought it back just to where it felt like it started to engage. What I tell people in that scenario, come back in 30 days, check it again, then again in 60 days. Eventually, it'll get to the point where your truss rod is equalizing the pressure that the string is putting on the neck. Right now, it's not doing anything. Okay, now let's check our intonation and our first fretted note. We're going to start on our low E. There's our low E on the 12th. That's pretty good. Open. 12th. It's probably just a fraction high. Open. Let's check our first fretted note. I don't know if you saw that. You can see that it's going to F sharp. So our first fretted note is definitely high. There's our A. A on the 12th. Open. 12th. Again, just a fraction high. Open. And A first fretted note. So our A sharp is just a little flat. There's our D. D on the 12th. Open. 12th. And the D intonation is a little high. Open. D first fretted note. There's our D sharp. It's just a fraction high. That one's really, really good. There's our G. G on the 12th. Open. 12th. And you can see that the rotation is just a little faster, because we're actually a little sharp. Let's try to retune that. There it is. G on the 12th. Open. 12th. Yes, the G intonation is sharp. G open. First fretted note. And the G sharp is definitely sharp. There's our B. B on the 12th. Open. B on the 12th. And our B is sharp. B open. B first fretted note. And that one is good as well. Let's try our high E. High E on the 12th. Open. high E on the 12th. Open, 12th. And our high E is high on the intonation. Open, and our first fretted note on the high E. And that one is spot on. And you can tell when something is spot on, the tuner will lock immediately. All in all, it's not horrible. Our E is out quite a bit, so it needs a little bit of work on the nut. But it's not horrible. We've seen worse on the channel as far as the first fretted note. Intonation is okay. Rule of thumb is if you're going to be out on your intonation, be a little flat. Flat is more pleasing to the ears than it being sharp. This one, the intonation, they're all sharp. But just keep that in mind. When you're setting your intonation, it's better to be on the flat side. Okay, I have the guitar flipped over. First thing we're going to do is take the rear cover plate off here. We're going to check the tremolo block and the springs. Okay, we can see the ground wire coming across and making ground contact to our claw, and that solder joint looks kind of dull. Looks like typical springs, and at least it does have a decent sized block in it. And of course we can't take the block off and actually weigh it, but it is a little larger than the cheaper blocks, so at least it does have a decent sized block in it. And our screws here, we do see a little bit of thread. So I don't know how long this screw is. What I like to see is just maybe one of the threads or right at the smooth part. So there may not be a lot of screw going back into the body here. There's a lot of screws sticking out. The route in here is pretty rough. We can see some missteps. You can see the arc here where it comes out and then comes across. You can see an arc here. That's a programming error. And I see a ton of steps. The routing is not very clean. And there's a lot of dirt and debris down inside the route. It was not cleaned out before they sprayed it. I do see some black. I'm not sure if that's conductive shielding paint or not. Okay, let's look at our electronics. Before we take the screws out, let's check how the cover plate fits. Right here, the cover plate is setting in, and that's a good millimeter below the body. About a half a millimeter. Back to a millimeter. About a half a millimeter. And here it's sticking out past the body. We're going to say about a half a millimeter. And there is some bounce. There is some bounce in the cover. Okay, let's take it out, take it off, see what we got inside. Okay, in here we see that they've put a zip tie on the wires to keep it tidy. And our first solder joint directly on top of this small pot looks nice. That solder joint has a nice sheen to it. And looking at the two on top of this pot, Again, they have nice sheens. The ground joint on this one is a little messy. This side has a good sheen and that side's kind of dull. And that's where they tied the first ground in and then went back and tied the second ground on top of the other solder joint. We've seen that quite often. As far as the joints on the pots, this pot looks good. It's kind of hard to see down in there the way they have the wires zip tied. And this pot looks good as well. And they did run the wire through the hole in the tab and then solder it. It looks fine. Our switch, there's good sheen on the center tab. And this tab here, the one on the right, I do see the wire there. It's a little skimpy on the solder, but it has a nice sheen. And it's very tight in here, the way they have this switch oriented in the cavity. It's pretty tight. And all your wires are coming through right here on top of this switch. The route, again, we're seeing quite a bit of particulate in the finish inside this route. It's pretty rough. But I do not see any step down marks. So this cavity does look a little better than that one, but it is still quite rough. Our next thing is our battery bay. And I have put a battery in there now because it was not shipped with a battery. And you could say it's a full tray. It's not just a cover screwed with the wood route in the bottom. I have seen them like that. So that will protect the battery. And it seems to lock. The top cover does have some deflection. So this is a lower grade plastic. It is moving. All right, let's put it back together. Okay, our next thing is to check our jack here. And it is a stereo jack. And it looks to be of good quality. Doesn't seem to be, well, that one's good. This one here seems to be a little flimsy. This one feels like it's got some pressure. It's not a barrel jack, which I'm surprised to see. Usually the stereo jacks are barrel jacks. But the soldering looks good on these. There's a nice puddle on each tab. I'd say that's okay. Okay, I have the guitar plugged into our multimeter. We are in the bridge position and it is reading 16.62. both pickups together is reading 12.87. And just our neck position is reading 16.59. Okay, I have our scale here. I'm going to set the guitar on the scale. And in grams, the guitar weighs 3,440 grams. And in pounds, 7 pounds, 9.3 ounces. Okay, I thought we would go back and check our action height. Remember, we've made adjustments to this neck, and it had negative back bow in it. So that would actually cause the strings to set closer to the neck. Now that we have the proper amount of relief in the neck, we need to go back and see what the action height is going to be after the neck adjustment. Again, with our StewMac gauge, we're going to check it. And on the 12th, with our readjusted neck, we have 0.090 on the low E, and 0.090 on the high E. For me, that's extremely high. I'm probably not even going to attempt to play the guitar with the action height that high. I am going to lower it down to an average height that most of these import guitars come to me at. I'm going to set the low E at 0.07 and the high E at 0.06. Now keep in mind, we have some really awful fret leveling going on. I'm going to set it at that because that's not a low action and it's not a high action. I think 0.07 on the low E and 0.06 on the high E is fair. It's a fair action height because most guitars are sent out to that specification. So I'm going to set it at that and see if we get any buzz. Okay, I have the guitar plugged into my Applied Research Technology preamp. It's running into a Pro Valve 6L6 power amp into 4 Greenback Celestion drivers. Before we do the demo, I want to do scales down the neck and see if we have any dead frets. I do have the string action set at 0.07 on the low E and 0.06 on the high E. There is a couple fizzy frets, and that's about as low as you'd be able to set the action on this guitar. It is playable where it's at. We do have some up here. And if you remember, we had some really bad frets down here on the higher register. Okay, we're just going to get a couple sounds out of the guitar and see what this thing actually sounds like. a tune, and I really wasn't abusive on it. Okay, maybe they're stretched out. I've actually been playing this guitar quite a bit, and so it's not a string stretching issue. The guitar actually has a really good sound, and I could be a little biased there. I played a PV Nitro Active for over 25 years with an EMG Active 89 in the bridge. So this sound is very familiar to me. It's pleasing to my ear because I'm used to that active sound. The guitar really does sound good. And it has that active punch. It's not overly hot. Sometimes you can get a pickup that's just too hot and it starts to muffle and get muddy sounding. This pickup is hot, it's articulate, but it's not muddy. It takes the hammer on very well. well. Alright, well that sums up our demo section. Now we're going to our conclusions. What are my final thoughts on this guitar? I'm a little torn because I love the way the guitar sounds. But I can't say that it's a good guitar. There are just too many issues with the guitar. The fret leveling is horrible on it. It was sent to me with negative relief, a back bow in the neck, and something we didn't go over earlier in the video, the tuning keys, because I had to tune it a lot during the demo. I edited most of it out, probably 5 or 6 times. That's why the demo section was so short. I got very frustrated. The guitar eventually did stabilize, but the tuning keys are very jumpy, and it's not just 1 or 2 of them. They're all like that. They jump as you turn them. You can feel it. They're notchy. So the tuning keys are not very good on the guitar. The nut on the guitar will need dressing. That's the main reason why the guitar will not stay in tune. The next thing is the bridge. The bridge is very, very soft. If you like a soft feeling bridge, you may like this bridge. But it's so soft, when you bend the strings, you can literally see the bridge rocking like that on the back. For aggressive playing, these springs are way too soft. I did try to bring them in, and then it really doesn't help that, if that makes sense. It didn't really make the bar any stiffer. It still felt sloppy. So I'm going to say it would need new springs as well. The next thing, these screws sticking out of this bridge, and it's very peculiar. The first 2 saddles, they're set well below the top of the saddle. The 2 center ones are sticking up 1/8 of an inch to 3/16 of an inch. Then the lower 2 saddles, they're barely sticking out, maybe a 1/16. It's almost like they ran out of screws and just used whatever they had for the adjustment. It's very peculiar. I don't really know what to say about that. The next thing we found are these inlays. They're not straight on the neck. They're poorly executed, I guess would be the best way of putting it. We also found some sanding errors down here when we put the radius gauge on the neck, where they tried to compensate for the bad inlay work, and they sanded too much off the neck. The next thing we found are the ball end frets do this all the way down the neck of the guitar. I know most of them do that. This one's on the bad side. I can deal with just a little bit of a wave, but there are some frets on this guitar that are just miscut. They are obviously cut short, and they were still installed. The crown and level on the guitar, as I said earlier, I have a feeling that these frets were pressed in and it was never leveled and crowned. But again, not only does it sound great, the guitar is just beautiful. This is a beautiful flame maple top. I'm so torn on the guitar. I want to like it, but the manufacturing is so poorly executed on it, I can't like it. If you bought one of these guitars and you had a completely different experience with it, you got one and it's great, post down there, because this is my second guitar from this manufacturer. This particular one at least made it to the demo. The first one I gave up on and ended the video. This one at least made it to the demo. If you had a different experience, please put a comment down below. Or have you bought from this company and had a similar experience, versus what I've had the last 2 times? I can't recommend this company. The workmanship is just not good. Anyway, if you like this kind of content, the highly detailed reviews and demonstrations and the breakdowns of these instruments, leave me a comment down below. I really try my hardest to point out everything that I can possibly see on the guitar. I try to go over everything on the guitar. That's not saying I hit everything, because I forget sometimes, and I go back and I look at the video, I'm like, oh, I didn't do this or I didn't do that. But I truly try to look at everything. And I want you to know how the fit and finish on this guitar is. Some people are more picky than other people, so I want to tell you everything that I see. Anyway, if you would, please smash that like button, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching this video. And for those of you that stick around, that means you're dedicated. And for those that did watch to the very end, yeah, that's number 2. Exact same guitar, just in a different finish. When the other one was so bad, I ordered another one. I don't like doing negative reviews on any instrument. Every company can make a bad guitar. Every company can make 2 bad guitars. This guitar suffers from the exact same issues as the one I just did the review on. The inlay work is sloppy. This neck is probably worse than the one that I reviewed. It has more negative back bow, and there's only a couple good areas where the fret rocker doesn't rock on it. The tuning keys feel the same. Even the screws on the bridge. Flush here, sticking way out in the center, and a 1/16 of an inch there. The switch, everything is identical on this guitar. And it's identical to the point where it's beautiful. It is a beautiful guitar. It's just so poorly executed. So before anyone says that I'm biased or I'm just trashing the instrument, I don't trash any instrument. I am just letting you know what I find when I order these guitars. None of these companies pay me. I buy these with my own money. Anyway, please hit the smash the like button thingy, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. On this channel, you'll get honest reviews of every product that you see here. Anyway, thank you for hanging out all the way to the end.